Within the universe of Kimetsu no Yaiba, the process of becoming a demon sees a person's worst personality traits be pushed to the surface and goes on to dominate their lives following their metamorphosis. This shift in their character often occurs due to the nature of someone with a painful life finally being given the power to lash out against the world who damned them, or of course, due to the lack of memories one would have after becoming a demon, left only with their hatred and negative emotions. Either way, in becoming one, you gain a great amount of power, but also suffer from an intense weakness to the sun, cutting you off from the energy source that all life originates from. Though, what if during the process of becoming a demon, instead of letting yourself be overwritten by your sorrow, you instead sacrificed your individuality and focused intensely on undoing your demonification? This was the process of the sun-selected saint sentenced to suffer in silence, Nezuko Kamado. Nezuko Kamado is one of the active protagonists within the story of Kimetsu no Yaiba, as well as the inciting incident for the entire manga story as a whole, as it is her mysterious transformation that kickstarts a series of events that would eventually lead to the breaking of the chains of fate established by the first demon Muzan, as alongside her brother Tanjiro, they work to not only understand and undo her transformation, but also help protect those around them in danger. Though, due to the nature of her unique metamorphosis, Nezuko's body remained ever changing, and this would result in a feat that no demon has ever achieved before her. Though, before we get too deeply into that, let's understand the meaning behind her name and design. Now, Nezuko's design may appear simple at first, but much like her own character, once we go beyond the surface, we find that there is a lot more to her than we might have first thought. Starting first with her kimono, as throughout most of the series, she ends up wearing a very similar styled light pink kamon kimono, or a kimono with a distinct repeating pattern and a primary color, with this color specifically being pink, which was likely selected both due to the fact that pink has a feminine connection and that it is a shade of red, but also because it's a complementary color for the tealish green that we see on Tanjiro's main design. And we do see that her design is playing complementary towards Tanjiro directly through her obi, which has a white and red checker pattern, which is directly complementary to Tanjiro's own black and green hori. Now, the pattern on Nezuko's kimono is called Asanoha, or hemp leaf pattern, and is a design with a symbolic connection to the history of Japanese clothing, as this type of kimono pattern is called a wagara, or a natural pattern that represents part of nature within its design. Asanoha, being based on the hemp leaf, is supposed to represent the plant's own durability and tendency to grow quickly and healthy without needing to be tended to too aggressively. Thus, the pattern itself is sort of connected to a symbolic concept of growth and development, even often being used as the common pattern in children's clothing to encourage healthy development for them. Nezuko relates to this pattern not only in her own demonic state, reverting her to a more childlike mindset, but also in how her body is rapidly developing in its own way to overcome the demonic influence of Muzan. And this connection between her outfit and her demonic nature is slightly intentional even in universe, as it is an outfit picked out for her by Tanjiro from the remains of their destroyed home. Besides her yukata, one of the other most noticeable elements of her design is her bamboo muzzle, though it functions more like a bit, as Nezuko will bite down into the bamboo, seemingly as a way to deter her desire to drink blood, but also to hide her fangs, and it's also possible that this is acting as a sort of short relief from the pain of hunger that she is experiencing on a daily basis. This works under the logic of the gate control theory, where you sort of stimulate part of your body to deter your mind from focusing on pain. This is seen very commonly throughout media and is based off of the times before anesthetics were commonplace, where you would simply bite down on a piece of wood or leather while undergoing a painful procedure, which is slightly reinforced by the fact that when Nezuko loses her bamboo throughout the series, Tanjiro has to jury-rig a replacement to maintain this process. Now, the visuals of the bamboo stick don't really have any historical context, but does seem to take direct inspiration from one of Kimetsu no Yaiba's own admitted major inspirations, this being Naruto, with promotional art and cover art of Naruto depicting him biting down onto a scroll or kunai in a similar fashion. Now, when focusing on Nezuko's less emphasized design elements, we reach her socks and her hair, with her socks being covered by a cloth padding, offering a basic form of protection like a samurai shin guard, and with this being the only armored part of her body, this emphasizes her legs as her main form of combat. Now, her hair also gained a special color hue following her demonic transformation. This being, the tips of it became an orangish red, which seems to represent the fiery passion burning within her, which of course would later take its physical form in her demonic blood art. Though this same flame burns within her brother, giving them both a reddish color motif to their hair and eyes. Though for Nezuko, hers is more of a lightish red instead of Tanjiro's more maroon. Now, name-wise, Nezuko's holds a rather similar level of depth to her design, as excluding the Ko character in her name, as it simply is the feminine version of child, we have Nezu, likely taken from Gonezu, the alternative name for the Yabudamaru, or Japanese snowball flower, which is not only a species of flowers that is known as a deciduous shrub, as they shed or bloom depending on the season, similar to how Nezuko shifts her consciousness and the future shedding of her demonic essence. As well, the Japanese snowball flower can be a symbol of determination and purity within Hanakatoba, or the Japanese language of flowers, likely due to its snow-white color blooming in the hot summer months. As well, the buds of these flowers can also be a reddish pink, which match up very well with Nezuko's own general color scheme. Though, breaking the Nezu portion of her name into its two characters, this connects very well with her role and her future in the series, as the Ne portion of her name comes from the character that can either mean sacred object, idol, or mausoleum, usually one for a family member, signifying Nezuko's importance to Tanjiro, as she is not only someone he considers of great value, but also is the last remaining family member and the last remnant of his previous life. As well, the Zu portion of her name can also mean bean, and it's not just because she's adorable. It likely relates back to Setsuban, a traditional celebration in Japan in which people throw roasted soybeans either outside of their home or at family members donning oni or demon masks in a ritual to banish away their bad luck and welcome in the good luck. This works not only with Nezuko's own character arc, but also how her blood demon art works. Now, her family name of Kamado, while not being uniquely hers, works very well with these connections, as the first portion of the name essentially means charcoal-fueled stove or furnace, and the second character means door or doorway. This is a reference to their family business, as they would sell wood or charcoal for furnaces, but also ties back to their relation to sun breathing and Yoroichi Sugikuni, as it is the Kamado family who pass on the Hinokami Kagura, or Dance of the Fire God, through their generations as a secret way of keeping sun breathing alive for the future, without Muzan being able to catch on. This makes the Kamado family, in a way, the fuel which keeps the flame of hope burning bright. That same flame that would go on to take two shapes. Firstly, Tanjiro's own ability as a swordsman, and second, as Nezuko's blood demon art. This of course being Exploding Blood. What Exploding Blood is a demon art developed by Nezuko that allows her to ignite her own blood into a blazing pink inferno. This flame, or at least its effects, does seem to originate from her affinity with sun breathing thanks to the Hinokami Kagura traditions that she was raised with. As we know, breathing styles do have an influence over the type of blood demon art you develop when becoming a demon, as Kokushibo and Kaguya both have blood demon arts that are essentially bringing their breathing style elements into reality. Though this sun-born flame does not burn like a regular fire. Instead, it fuels itself almost entirely on demonic creations, and is seemingly harmless to humans. Almost as if it was emulating the gentle warmness of the sun's rays. Nezuko also has a surprising amount of influence over her blood for someone who isn't focusing on being a demon, as she is able to move or reconnect it to her at will. This also allows her to activate it from a distance, making fighting her even more dangerous, as the more you injure her, the more her blood becomes another method of attack that she can take. Though, unlike other demons, she doesn't have a large reserve of blood within her, and if she uses too much of it, she can enter an anemic state of exhaustion. Now, as mentioned, the flames emulating the sun's light gives it a sort of purifying effect that destroys demonic influence in and around people, such as when she uses it to destroy Gutero's poison, or to banish Emu's sleeping curse. And when the flames engulf a Nichiren's sword, even though these flames don't harm humans, humans, they resonate with the blade, allowing it to achieve a red blade-like state. Now, outside of the majestic rays of the sun, Nezuko's ability also seems to be based off of the flames of the Buddhist hell realms known as Naraka or Jigoku, as within some Buddhist teaching there exist the hell realms, which are divided into 16 different layers, 8 cold and 8 hot. Nezuko's demonic abilities all seem to pull from the 8 burning hells, as unlike other characters in the series, Nezuko's forms of fighting seems to not be pulling from any real-world equivalent. Instead, she acts on more animalistic impulses, such as using her sheer strength to crush and break her opponents, or her sharp claws to rend and impale them. As well, the manner in which her fights play out often mirrors the nature of the first burning hell realm, where sinners are inflicted with horrific burns, or crushed and even cut to ribbons, before magically being restored back to health right before they would have died, which is not only seen in Nezuko's opponents, but also seen in her own absurd regeneration ability, that she is able to regrow limbs without losing her strength, which the strength is said to match even that of an Upper Moon 6, and she doesn't even drink blood, which is considered weird, at least according to Daki. Now, the manner in which she fights seems to be emulating, or at least taking inspiration from, one of the earlier versions of the Jinchuriki forms from Naruto, one of Kimetsu no Yaiba's aforementioned major inspirations, with both of these powers pulling their strength from a significantly stronger energy source. With Naruto, he is pulling from the nine-tailed fox, while Nezuko is pulling her strength from the abundance of blood that Muzan gave her when he first converted her, which he specifically mentions was a larger abundance than he normally does. As well, when powered up, their designs undergo a slight change. Of course, both of them become more sadistic and bestial in posture, as well as their movements. They grow razor-sharp claws and fangs, and markings begin to appear on their body, with Naruto's whisker design becoming more intense, as well as him growing a chakra tail, while Nezuko grows a large horn from her forehead, and her body begins to be covered in a vine-like snare, which could also be pulling from Sasuke's cursed mark that he gets during the Chunin exam, though these marks specifically are a reddish green and look very similar to the buds of the flowers in which she gets the name from, mixed together of course with vines. Now, the markings are very similar to that of Slayer marks, and are referred to in series as demon patterns, which means in this state her abilities are enhanced further than they normally are, and this is visually represented by her body growing in size as well. Though, interestingly enough, this marking taking the shape of vines growing across her body, being buds, may actually reflect her own internal struggle with her demonic essence. Now, why her flame took on a gentle form seems to tie into its own origins, where it wasn't born out of malice or hunger, but as a means to save someone, which is something that reflects Nezuko's character quite well, as even though she doesn't speak much directly in the series, one detail we know for sure about her is her willingness to sacrifice herself for others, as she will always put her family first in any situation. From her life before the attack, where she would put off her own personal wants and desires in favor of supporting her family, or angrily demanding that strangers would apologize to those that they injured, especially children, even if she didn't know the person who was hurt, to even her using her body as a shield for her younger sibling when Muzan attacked during his initial raid. This dedication to help others, let alone her family, motivated Nezuko to overcome her demonic instincts, and this is shown as early as the beginning of the series, with her protecting Tanjiro from Giyu within the first chapter, something that occurred long before she was put under any form of hypnosis. And this desire to help others is spoken loudly, not through words, but via actions seen throughout the entire series. From her choice not to drink blood, which isn't just some symbolic action, as even those who are treated for their demonic essence early on still require a little bit of blood to survive, because in becoming a demon, you lose the ability to sustain yourself off of normal food, which means that Nezuko's decision puts her in a constant state of suffering from the pains of starvation, which this constant starvation is referenced during the end of the series when Nezuko claims that she loves sleep in a similar way to Genya, who also loves sleep because as long as you're sleeping, you're not hungry. As well, speaking of the Shinozagawa, we are also shown a great demonstration of Nezuko's mental fortitude when you factor in the scene when Saname cuts his own arm to try to get her to drink his blood to show that she is just a normal demon, as if you don't remember, his blood is a special kind that is extremely intoxicating to all demons, including the first Upper Moon demon. yet she still refuses to drink it. And it is likely the rejection of this blood that allowed Kagaya to more confidently welcome Nezuko into the branches of the demon-slaying corps. Now, how Nezuko was able to overcome these desires was by using a form of deep meditation, or sleep, to bury her sensations. And this form of deep sleep is more than just a trait she inherited from her ancestors Nezuko Kamado, who not only helped connect her back to Yoruichi and sun breathing, but was well known for falling asleep just about anywhere. But the way Nezuko uses this to overcome her own desires seems to intentionally resemble the origins of the original Buddha, a being who achieved enlightenment by overcoming his temptations via fasting through meditation under a fig tree for 49 days. Though the number of days are actually up for debate, 49 is more of a symbolic number in Buddhism that relates to death and rebirth, so it may not actually literally be 49 days, but what is important is that he is there meditating for a while. And it is through this meditation that the Buddha learned to block out the Whispers of Mara, a demon of temptation that Muzan references very well in his own actions, especially given that he can telepathically communicate with all of his turned demons and can appear to them whenever they go against his desires. Now, this idea of Nezuko putting herself into a deep meditation so that she can overcome her desires is slightly confirmed both in the 2-year-long hibernation that she puts herself into, where she was not only placed under a hypnotic suggestion by Urakodaki, but also just in how she progresses throughout the series, as according to Tameo, someone who has been researching Nezuko's blood, and in general the blood of demons, for quite a long time, Nezuko's general childlike mentality isn't because of the suggestion or her transformation into a demon, as while some demons may lose their memories of their past, they also often retain parts of their old personality, and she should have reverted back to her normal self long ago. But it seems that she is actively suppressing her own will. In a sense, she has spiritually muzzled herself and dedicated all of her attention to changing her body as a way to expunge the demonic influence from it. Nezuko essentially sealed away her consciousness or sense of self to force her body into a constant state of metamorphosis, which would eventually change and result in her overcoming the power of the sun, which is an ability she earned following another moment of self-sacrifice, and in achieving this miraculous transformation, Muzan deems her the chosen demon, making Nezuko a literal enlightened one. As well, the special nature of her constantly changing blood allowed Tameo to forge a sort of countermeasure to Muzan's own influence, as when her blood is mixed with the blood of those who have been turned by Muzan, it not only breaks his hold over them, but greatly reduces the amount of blood they need to survive. We even see elements of Nezuko's own buried subconscious in her character design, specifically within her eyes, as before her demonification, her eye shape was rather similar to that of Tanjiro. Though, following her transformation, Nezuko's eyes become pale or hollow in appearance, though her pupils do return to her for brief moments throughout the series, specifically when her brother is in danger or the spirits of her family encourage her to take control. Thus, this could be seen as Nezuko allowing her consciousness to the surface, if only briefly, though we know she isn't fully human in these moments, as her irises are a similar shape to that of Muzan. As well, when she does this, she leaves herself susceptible to temptations, like in her fight against Daki, where she loses herself to the adrenaline and nearly attacks a random injured civilian, hungering for their blood, which in turn required Tanjiro to lull her back into her sleep-like state. And her eyes being a window to gauge her consciousness is reinforced both by Kimetsu no Yaiba's own focus on eyes as a character design trait, but also in chapter 196 specifically, where Gatoge represents Nezuko's own consciousness returning to the surface after her conquering of the sun via her eyes, as the memories from her times as a demon and her past before Muzan begin melding together. One side of her face that is supposed to represent her humanity shows her pre-transformed eyes, while the demonic side of her face shows us the hollow pupils that we've become accustomed to. Now, it is through her meditation, relation to the Hinokami Kagura, and her sacrifices that she and Tanjiro made along the journey that Nezuko is able to eventually overcome Muzan's influence. Though, one outside factor that may have also contributed to Nezuko's own strength of will is a secret that the Kamado family has been keeping rather close to their chest. This being, they are the only people of their time that have knowledge of the blue spider lily's whereabouts. Now, the blue spider lily is a rare species of plant that can be seen as sort of the starting point for the entire bloody history of demons and demon slayers, kind of like the stone mask in JoJo, as it was used in the medicine that converted Muzan into a demon all those years ago, and this unique plant only blooms during the summer for a limited period of time, specifically in the morning, before eventually mutating into a horsetail. And according to the data book of Kimetsu no Yaiba, as well as one of Tanjiro's flashbacks during the Spider Mountain arc, Kai Kamado, the mother of Tanjiro and Nezuko, knew of the location and of the importance of this flower, as it would bloom around the house in which they lived because it initially belonged to Yoroichi, who planted the spider lilies out of respect to his deceased wife. So it is possible that the Kamado family had some sort of interaction with these flowers in their lives before Muzan attacked, which is somewhat suggested in the lullaby that Nezuko's mother would sing to her to get her to sleep, one which discussed how she and her family, symbolized in the lullaby as white rabbits, have their red eyes. The answer relates to eating the fruit from the red tree, which would normally be a simple song or lullaby, but given that Demon Slayer has emphasis on hair color and eye color as important elements of a character's elemental affinity, with Urakodaki and Hotoro believing that Tanjiro's blade would turn a reddish color because of his red eyes, it's possible that the fruit that they are referring to is in relation to this flower and contributed to Nezuko's own unique nature as a demon, and why a lot of the elements of her resemble that of Muzan. Ultimately, Nezuko's silence is something born out of suffering. As for her to speak, to want, to ever unnecessarily regain control of herself, she could end up dooming those she loves, or even undoing their entire struggle. So, she chooses instead to stay muzzled, finding joy in the little things like having her hair braided. Does she get to spend her time in relative peace following Muzan's defeat? Though her memories as a demon were still fuzzy, between the people she knew as Nezuko and those she only knew as a demon, like Zenitsu, a boy she would eventually end up marrying and having a family with, partly due to the fact that he had the ability to move vertically really fast. Nope, that's not a joke, it's also very literal. In a Jump Giga interview, it's revealed that Nezuko's type of man is those who work like the rook piece in shogi, which of course works like the rook piece in chess. Though, beyond that, she also was able to develop a trust for him, as she is able to eventually connect the dots that he is the boy who protected her from Inosuke during the Drum Demon arc, ultimately realizing that he had to have a good heart. And it is thanks to her actions that the chains of fate that shackled the world into darkness were broken, and that a bright future could be created. And this future couldn't be represented better than in the name of her future descendants, this being Yoshiteru and Toko Agatsumi, which essentially mean the gentle light and the child of light. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps keep this channel flowing as smoothly as it does, and if you want to overcome your own demonic desires, well, I know a good place to do so is through Shimonetta, a boring world where the contradictory jokes doesn't exist. Just think about Shimonetta, you can buy it at buyshimonetta.com.